Imagine how the world would react to an announcement that turns space into a battlefield, or perhaps into an unbreakable shield. In May 2025, in the midst of a time of geopolitical tensions, Donald Trump stands in the Oval Office and unveils his latest mega project, the Golden Dome. A comprehensive and integrated system designed to protect the United States against all possible threats. More than 447 articles flood the media from left-leaning sources like Special Broadcasting Service News, emphasizing the horrendous costs of up to $542 billion, with some even talking about $1 trillion over 20 years and warning of a new era of space militarization. All the way to right-leaning outlets like InfoWars, which celebrate it as the ultimate game-changer for US security, claiming it will intercept missiles from every corner of the world. Centrist voices like Reuters provide balance, detailing the timeline up to 2028 and the involvement of giants like SpaceX. The coverage is as polarized as Congress itself. Left, 59 articles fueling arms race panic. Right, 79. Those proclaiming patriotic triumph. And in the middle, 149 that outline the challenges based on facts. It's a media frenzy that shows how a single idea can divide the world. You see how the Golden Dome stirs up the media world. An announcement that's examined from all sides, but often distorted by bias and political alignment. The Golden Dome is not just a military project, it's a milestone that shows us how close we are to a multi-planetary future, where technologies that intercept rockets could also protect us from asteroids. From an optimistic perspective, this could be the catalyst that drives private space companies like SpaceX to innovate even faster. But is that the right way? Or are we risking sacrificing peace in space? Let's unravel the story, peel back the layers, and see if this golden dream delivers on its promise. The Golden Dome is often compared to Israel's Iron Dome, a largely successful system for intercepting short-range rockets. You might think that the US already has such a system, especially since they're paying for Israel's with their tax dollars. It's true that the US has various air defense systems, but most of these are positioned outside the country and don't have a central brain that keeps track of the overall situation. But while the Iron Dome is focused on regional threats, the Golden Dome aims for global protection that covers all phases of a missile attack. Canada also wants to benefit from this system and is currently negotiating the terms for participation. She says that according to the US offer, you can come under the protection of the Golden Dome for a mere $61 billion US. The second option is that they can join as the 51st state of the US and thus enjoy this system for free. However, this ambitious goal raises some questions. Is the system technically feasible? What will the actual costs be? Which companies will play key roles? The Golden Dome picks up on a vision that Ronald Reagan already dreamed of in the 1980s. The Strategic Defense Initiative, or SDI for short, better known as Star Wars Reagan, wanted to build a shield that would make nuclear missiles harmless. Before they reach their target, a dream of security in a world of nuclear madness. SDI failed due to technical hurdles and skyrocketing costs, but it planted the seed for concepts like Brilliant Pebbles, a brilliant system of thousands of small satellites orbiting like pebbles and intercepting missiles in the boost phase. Imagine each pebble, that is, each little stone, as an autonomous hunter equipped with infrared sensors that detect the hot engines of an intercontinental ballistic missile and intercept them kinetically. So just collide to destroy them. No explosion needed, just pure physics. The idea was revolutionary. low Earth orbits, or LEO for short, where the satellites are fast enough to catch missiles before they release their warheads. Let's jump to the year 2025, the time when they're okay. On the 27th of January, he signs an executive order instructing the armed forces to develop the Golden Dome, a multi-layered system that defends not only against ballistic missiles, but also hypersonic weapons and drones. The Cold War is over, but new threats are looming. China is testing hypersonic weapons, Russia is rearming, and North Korea is firing test missiles. Trump estimates the cost at $175 billion, with a starting budget of $25 billion, and promises completion by 2028. The Congressional Budget Office, or CBO for short, is more sober. The space components alone could cost 161 to 542 billion euros over 20 years. The Center for Strategic and International Studies, or CSIS for short, realistically warns not until 2035. And the costs could reach into the trillions. Now to the layers of the Golden Dome, a multi-layered masterpiece that covers all phases of an attack. The executive order of January 27, 2025 specifies at least 8 components, inspired by STI. But upgraded with 2025 tech. Let's go through this step by step, because who would have thought that space, which was supposed to bring us peace, now harbors weapons? The base layer of the Golden Dome defends against ballistic missiles, hypersonic weapons, cruise missiles, and future air attacks. Sensors and interceptor missiles detect trajectories at speeds of up to Mach 20 using a combination of radar and infrared. These systems are positioned worldwide and in orbit. Before the outcry about the militarization of space begins, let me clarify that this train already left the station back in the 1960s and 1970s. Space was first used for military purposes, then for civilian ones. The term militarization is therefore inappropriate, since space has always been used for military purposes since its very beginning. The military uses it for reconnaissance and deterrence. Weapons have been in orbit for decades, probably even nuclear weapons. I've already produced a separate video on this with a brigadier from the Austrian Armed Forces. I don't welcome militarization, but naivety doesn't help anyone either. We should look at things realistically. The hypersonic and ballistic tracking space sensor layer consists of a network of satellites that track missiles in real time. It provides precise data on location, trajectory, and target for an early response. Technology is more advanced than expected. Northrop Grumman is building on the space-based infrared system and received an $8 billion contract in June 2025. The project has a good chance of being completed quickly, since many satellites, rockets, and sensors have already been developed and are in use. They just need to be brought together centrally. The progress of artificial intelligence makes this possible, even though it's more complex than it sounds. The proliferated space-based interceptors shine with brilliant pebbles. Thousands of small satellites intercept missiles during the boost phase when they are still slow and vulnerable. At that point, the missile is probably still in the attacker's territory, which is especially relevant when it comes to nuclear warheads. The global constellation of thousands of interceptors presents an enormous challenge, but private companies have shown that it's possible to launch hundreds or even thousands of satellites into space. Each pebble weighs between 1.5 and 2.5 kilograms and hits its target with kinetic energy, so without any explosives at all. SpaceX has submitted a bid with Palantir for 400 to 1,000 satellites for $10 billion. Ironic. Since Trump and Musk were once closely connected and now they're not anymore, we're living in a South Park episode. It's important to get information consciously and not believe everything. Currently, Trump has excluded SpaceX and favored Bezos' Blue Origin. Whether that holds up legally is unclear. SpaceX will fight for these contracts. We're watching this closely. The terminal phase intercept capabilities come into play in the final phase when missiles enter the atmosphere. Glide phase interceptors from Lockheed Martin intercept them before they reach targets like cities. The system is based on Patriot and THET optimized for counter-value attacks on civilian targets. Lockheed signed a $15 billion contract in August 2025 for thousands of interceptors by 2028. Advanced sensors track the glide phase, where missiles are maneuverable. Artificial intelligence calculates trajectories at hypersonic speeds. That protects lives and infrastructure. Critics argue that this layer comes too late if the other layers have already failed. Supporters believe that the risk justifies the cost. Better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, I would say, supporters. The proliferated warfighter's space architecture custody layer forms the backbone. The SIE integrates sensor data into a unified network for continuous battlefield control. Real-time communication is essential for decision-making. PWSA combines satellites with ground stations, minimizes delays, and resists interference. A commander sees attacks live. It's really fascinating how space is becoming a nervous system. Is centralization a weakness? A hack could shut everything down. Write in the comments what you think. The left of launch capabilities are controversial. They prevent launches through preemptive strikes or cyber attacks. Boeing is developing cyber and drone technology with a $5 billion contract from May 2025. Proactivity saves lives. Such actions appear aggressive and provoke criticism. Russia and China protest. Where does defense end and where does aggression begin? A pressing question that is especially relevant in other regions of the world as well. The secure supply chain process protects components from sabotage. Global chains require monitoring with blockchain technology. This strengthens resilience. And the costs for this security add up, and according to the Congressional Budget Office, could reach $831 billion. Unexpected technical hurdles could drive these costs even higher. That's far from the original $175 billion. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, the goal set by the White House for completion in 2029 is also unrealistic. They estimate that the project won't be finished before 2035. That could be delayed even further if the threat situation changes or technical hurdles arise. Non-kinetic capabilities use lasers from Raytheon. They efficiently disable missiles without collision. High-energy lasers work in the boost phase. Raytheon received a $7 billion contract for it. Lasers cause less damage, but they are weather-dependent and could provoke another arms race. These layers work seamlessly together and provide comprehensive defense. Nevertheless, critics warn about the high complexity, which makes the system vulnerable to disruptions. For example, anti-satellite attacks known as ASATs or jamming signals could cripple it. The strong dependence on space technology carries risks that should not be underestimated. SpaceX is a pioneering leader. Elon Musk's company proposes a constellation of 400 to 1,000 satellites based on Starlink technology. Affordable launches with the Falcon 9 make this possible. However, there are controversies due to Musk's complicated relationship with Trump and regulatory hurdles. Critics fear that integrating it into a military system could jeopardize the civilian use of Starlink. On the optimistic side, the past few years have shown that private companies can launch hundreds of satellites into space. That's definitely doable. Lockheed Martin brings years of experience with systems like Patriot and terminal high-altitude area defense. The company is taking on the development of the glide phase interceptors with a contract worth $15 billion. Northrop Grumman is focusing on sensors and has received $8 billion for that. Raytheon is developing laser weapons with $7 billion. And Boeing is responsible for the infrastructure and has received $5 billion. Smaller players like Blue Origin are filling niches. From a geopolitical perspective, Russia and China are sharply criticizing the system. They see it as a threat to their strategic deterrence. Russia is threatening to upgrade its space weapons. China has announced its own anti-satellite program. That could trigger a new arms race in space and jeopardize stability. There is some international cooperation. Japan has signed an agreement for the joint development of sensors, but Europe is hesitant because many countries reject the militarization of space. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967 is being put to the test. Experts argue that interceptors and laser weapons represent a gray area. That could lead to diplomatic tensions. The schedule is ambitious. Trump wants to have the system finished by 2028 or 2029, and Lockheed Martin is even aiming for the end of 2026. The Congressional Budget Office is more realistic, estimating completion for a later date. The cost could reach into the trillions, especially if unexpected problems or escalations occur. By the way, if you want to get news like this and other space updates delivered to your inbox, sign up now for the brand new Mars Chronicles newsletter, which has recently launched. Every week we bring you exciting space news and interesting specials. Sign up for free at Marshronik in Space. The link is below in the description. The program links these layers into a strong shield. It fends off a variety of threats and integrates existing technologies. The militarization of space is a historical fact, but it carries risks. Brilliant pebbles and lasers promise innovation, while contracts with companies like Northrop and Lockheed drive progress forward. Geopolitical tensions and costs remain challenges, but viewed optimistically, this drives space exploration forward. If you enjoyed this epic analysis of the Golden Dome, subscribe to Mars Chronicles and leave a thumbs up. A huge thank you goes out to all channel members and Patreon supporters. If you also want to become part of the community, you can find all the information about it below in the video description. My name is Serwan, and this was Mars Chronicles. Thank you for tuning in. Per aspera ad astra.